Welcome, Emmanuel. Okay, so let's begin. So welcome everyone to this webinar, and we'll be together for the next one and a half hours. We'll try and keep it short. And thank you for, we're on 30-40 people, and I started the communication in 3 days. So we see that the power of community is working, and thanks to technology, we are all connected. And my name is Abhinav, for some of those whom I don't know. And I'm going to be your host. And Pranav, my brother, and Mark will be joining us, will be your co-hosts, and only they can speak as well. And of course, along with Professor Gupta. And all the others will be on mute. And you can use the chat option, the conversations, if you have any questions. And at the end of the presentation, we'll try and answer them. And so I'm a Paris-based frugal innovation consultant and facilitator. And 3 years back, I met Professor Gupta, and he has been a big inspiration in what I do. And he's one of the pillars of frugal innovation. And he has coined the term grassroots innovation in the early 80s. So we're really happy and proud to have him on this first webinar in a series of webinars that will follow on different subjects, going from conscious business to improvisation, decentralized energy, and everything that is to do with this changing universe. And I think with the corona, we are seeing that we have been taken by surprise, and we are living what a historic moment. So before we begin, you're going to see on your screens a small survey. Have you already heard of the Honeybee Network before this webinar? Okay. And I'll display the results. So there are 56. So there are, I think you can see my screen, there are 53% of people who know about the Honeybee Network, and the others don't know. So Professor Gupta will tell us more about the Honeybee Network. And Pranav, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. I know some of you, and I've been in Paris for the past 1.5 years. I'm studying in ESSEC Business School, but I'm also working in BNP Paribas in sustainable innovation. Yeah, and I'll be happy to answer, help you with your question. Yeah.
And Mark.
Hello. My name is Mark. So I met Abhi about 3 years ago now. And about 2 years ago, I visited India for the first time. I went to Pondicherry, where I was welcomed by Abhi's families. And then I went to Ahmedabad, where I met Professor Gupta in his office. And my occupation is around perspective and weak signals. So I have a website that I will put on the conversation so that you can have a look on my work. And I organized with Abhi last year an event in Paris business district. It's called La Défense. And the event was about the name of the event was Frugal Innovation Day. So thank you, Abby, for this opportunity to talk about frugal innovation.
Thank you, Mark. So everyone can see the presentation and the video of the speakers. Okay, perfect. Yes. Perfect. So indeed, last year with Mark, we had organized a whole day dedicated to frugal innovation. So it was called the Frugal Innovation Day. And this year we are adapting to the situation. And instead of doing a Frugal Innovation Day, we're going to be doing a series of webinars. And with the corona, we are seeing the criticality of social resilience and how it has disrupted our daily lives, the social, financial system, the political system, supply chains, job losses. And frugal innovation is about solving wicked problems and solving problems in a constantly changing environment with limited resources and constraints, and how we can simplify complexity and be creative with constraints. So hopefully the next 20 minutes, Professor Gupta will introduce himself and the Honeybee Network. And through this short presentation, you get an idea of how we can adapt. And following this, I'll present to you what's happening in India and how is India adapting to the corona. And we will end with some questions, and I'll present to you our next speakers. So Professor Gupta, you can begin. I'll make you the host.
Good evening from India. The very fact that this epidemic has made us all to slow down, even in the daytime, one can hear the sound of the birds, chirping of the bird, because there's not much traffic. People are all locked up. We are at the moment, about 500 districts in the country are locked down. So therefore, all of us are working from within our homes. And perhaps the reason such epidemics or such catastrophes take place is to remind us that nature, of course, cannot be beaten. So let us look at what Honeybee Network has been doing. A nameless, faceless, creative person or a community comes in contact with the network, gets an identity. It is this process of giving voice, visibility, and velocity to the creative people in formal and informal sector that we have started this movement 30 years ago and has now spread to many countries, including France and many other places, Germany and many other places. The whole idea is that there are creative voices in every sector, at every level in the society. Very often they don't get converged and we need to bring them together. But we must recognize that, like this duck, often the oddballs constitute what we call as Honeybee Network, because it is the oddball in a system which thinks differently, talks differently, views things differently, which brings about a new perspective. And we need such perspective today all the more than ever before. If you wish to know where I am, I'm at the intersection of loving, learning, and living. A life without love and without learning is meaningless. And let us hope that all of us together in this webinar are somewhere here in the center so that our learning also promotes loving and living. We have been walking all different parts of the country. I've walked in every state, more than 6,000 kilometers.
Gupta ji, I'll just yes. interrupt. Did you get a message to record the webinar?
No, I didn't. Yesterday it was, but today I didn't.
Just a moment.
I think you have to just switch it on.
I can see it's recording.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so please continue. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was talking about Shodh Yatra, the learning walk, which takes us in summer to the hot places, winter to the cold places. And in autumn, we go to Himalaya with my students and others. So essentially, what are we trying to do? We are trying to find ways in which new perspectives emerge. We learn from 4 teachers: teacher within, teacher around us, teacher in nature, and teacher among communities, common people, all the 4 teachers. And the very fact that today this crisis has given us an opportunity for online cooperation to design, develop, and deliver affordable solution, we would not have realized the potential of this perspective if there was no crisis. So every crisis also offers an opportunity and bring people together. This is a QR code, which if you scan with your camera, with your phone, you will be able to get access to our databases. Why do we share our databases openly? With no expectation of reciprocity. If you do, fine. If you don't do, we don't care. But the idea is that solutions developed by people in one part may have relevance and may solve problems in another part. And it is this cross-pollination of ideas, which is the crux, which is the heart of the matter. So we must remember that frugality, sustainability, and inclusiveness are not all the same. You can have a frugal solution like a sachet. You can have inclusive, which is affordable. But if you calculate the cost of collecting plastic from, let's say, 600,000 villages of our country, it is very costly. So frugality does not necessarily or does not automatically mean sustainability. And a lot of literature is cluttered with this notion that frugality is just enough to be affordable, not regarding that affordability for human beings and affordability for nature, both are critical. You can't have one by sacrificing the other. We need to have all the 3. And of course, when we have frugality, we must also have frugality in supply chains, in accessibility, in affordability, in reliability, in availability, environmental compatibility. So it's very necessary that when we talk about innovations, they have this property. How do we cope with complexity? If you look at complexity, it implies nested networks of information flows in manner that we can't anticipate. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And when uncertainty is there and information is interlinked, it is not easy to trace the flow of a logical argument or a logical direction. And at such moments, we need to understand how nature behaves. So for example, there's a complex relationship of immunity with vulnerability. The coronavirus has brought out several paradoxical trends. While on one hand, we have no treatment for virus, so we obviously try to reduce the symptoms by using medicines which are for one purpose. Now we are trying to tweak them to another purpose. But recall an example in Germany when there was a plague. There's an interesting book by Sharon Mollem on survival of the sickest. And the author brings out that when there was a plague, there was a particular enzyme that was there in the nasal fluid of healthy people, which the vector of the virus needed. And therefore it attacked the healthy people more than the sick people. And that gave rise to a paradoxical understanding of survival of the sickest, not just the fittest. So we must therefore develop a relationship of the complexity that is underlying a problem of vulnerability. How does tolerance of infection take place through the antibodies? How do we create remedies, or we increase the ability of the body to deal with this virus, with this disease? The different thoughts on the subject, and obviously grassroots level communities often focus more on making system robust rather than always fighting the problem by a quick fix solution. Insularity and empathy are very critical. Complexity increases when we keep people who are most vulnerable out of our framework. How do we take care of the poorest? How do we take care of the ones who are not able to fight the problem as well as others to become part of our own common conscience collective? When there is a forest fire, many times it happens because we have made the landscape uniform, same species. We have not cared about natural barriers to fire, and therefore the fires spread very fast. We know what happened this year in Australia. Every year we have fires in our Uttarakhand forest, in the Himalayan forest, parts of our forest. So therefore, The natural disasters or crises of a large magnitude indicate inability of our human society, our limited knowledge to cope with the complex relationship that exists in nature. And when we violate them, we suffer. Accumulated errors cannot be corrected during the period of crisis, but beginning can be made. And I hope that this time we'll make some course correction. So let me share the next concept, which is called as autopoiesis, self-correcting, self-designing, self-managed at different scales of the society. So let us look at this tree, which I came across in Himalayan Kangra, in Himachal Pradesh. And I talked to the tree and asked, what happened? Why did you have this shape? The tree said, look, I'm not supposed to branch. By mistake, I did. I converted that branch into a parallel stem. As I'm talking to you, many cells in my body are going through mutation. Thankfully, these mutations are not cancerous, so I continue to talk to you. This ability of my body to repair, to replace, to bypass these cells is called autopoiesis. And we need to create in our society this capacity for autocorrection, for self-design, for self-management. And this requires, of course, understanding of each other's skills and capacities. So what are the methods that society has followed over the years, particularly ancient society? Redundancy. Many times, if you look at behavior of ants, and you see when they forage for the food, a few ants will follow a non-popular or less popular pathway. Because if the main route gets damaged, which is where the majority of the ants are walking, they always have bugged out, they already have bugged out a bypass. That is redundancy. Not focusing on one solution, one highway, one method, one technology too much. Second is randomized exploration. We also try to randomize, to convert a definite event into a random event so that we can have sometime more, sometime less, and we deal with that problem. We have to retreat sometime, resituate, refocus. Who had imagined that for weeks together, people will stay in their home, talk to each other, read, reflect, clean up the things, finish the pending work, listen to music, listen to the bird, sound of the bird, and so on and so forth. So sometimes it is necessary to retreat. That is one way to deal with complexity. People go for meditation. In Buddhism, we go for 2 months retreat just to be able to refocus inside. Recourse to analogies, biomimicry, metaphorical pathways also helps us many times to deal with complexity. I try to see, I will give you an example. How do we repurpose, recombine existing solutions? Many medicines are being tried, medicine for TB, medicine for malaria, are being recombined, repurposed. Sometimes we recontextualize. For example, there was somebody, a farmer who developed Yusuf in Sikar, Rajasthan. Rajasthan is a desert area in western part of our country. He developed a digger for groundnut or peanuts. Now that's something, a solution for digging the pod when they are mature. And another innovator in Visakhapatnam, the other side of the country, coastal area, East Coast, tried to use it as a sea beach cleaner. Recontextualized. This innovation from one context was used in another context and became very frugal solution. We also redefine and recombine supply chain. One company was supplying water tanks, plastic water tanks, overhead tanks you might have seen on the top of the roof of many houses. Another neighbor, entrepreneur, was selling detergents. He said, your tanks occupy so much of space, but they don't have much weight. Can I put my detergent bags in your tank? Supply chains got merged. Now they were able to get more out of less. One visit of a truck was getting them delivery of detergent and also the tanks. Earlier, they were both going separately, and obviously the space, the fuel, the energy, the time, the distance was not being managed up to. So we can obviously recombine supply chains. When medicine had to deliver in some part of Africa, they tried to look at the soft drink bottles, and they found at the neck of the bottle, which is thin, there's a lot of space. They kept the medicines there so that in the same crate, you could pack more material and deliver them to the places without extra cost at all. So medicine reached wherever the drinks reached. So there are very many examples of frugal supply chains, which is very important. We don't have to focus only on product and processes, but also supply chains. And at this time, it is very important. How do we merge our supply chains so that we can get the medicine to the most needy people. We can get the advice about distancing to the most needy people. We can get advice about supply, about the sanitation to the most needy people. The last is very critical point, resilience through voluntary suffering. You know, today our fast begins for 9 days and fasting. Now, fasting or voluntary suffering is one of the age-old way of learning to deal with stress. So we go through some stress voluntarily so that if there's extreme stress, our body can cope with it. And fasting in all religions, in all cultures, there is a concept of fasting. Different ways, different deviation, different kinds, different method, different modes. But every culture in the world believes that periodic fasting will help ourselves to cope with the stress better. It also fosters reliance on pooled inventory of goods and resources. So we need to remember that voluntary suffering and voluntary stress helps societies become stronger. We must therefore try to look at those methods which are disrupting autopoiesis, homeostasis, that is resilience, and paradoxical thinking at our own peril. There's a very interesting example of beaver, salmon, and beluga whales. Some scholars went to Alaska and North Russia and were talking to the local communities living there for ages about beluga whale. But people were talking about salmon, they were talking about beavers, and this scholar got exasperated. He said, look, I have come to learn about beluga whale, but you're talking about something totally different. They said, no, you are not listening to us. When salmon go upstream, beavers make a dam, then salmons cannot go upstream and cannot lay the eggs. When they can't lay the eggs, salmon population goes down. When salmon population goes down, beluga whales don't come here during those periods. Now this connection, interconnection between different things is important way of learning about nature, and we are losing this spirit of more and more. Let us see how sometimes traditional knowledge developed by common people can become the latest, the most advanced tool for dealing with the problem, even in a developed country. In Canada, Ontario, Ministry of Food and Agriculture on its website has an advisory for the farmers, milk as a management tool for viral diseases. Now we know we have this practice in Andhra Pradesh where people transplant tobacco seedling, they put a hand in a pot of milk, and their hands will not carry the virus anymore to the new seedling that they will transplant if the previous one were infected. So it prevents, it inactivates. In Gujarat, when there's a foot and mouth disease, people put milk in the hooves, on the hooves of the cattle. It inactivates. I had a pain in my ear way back in 50s, and landlady put her breast milk. So I mentioned this example and asked the people in a conference on biochemistry and plant physiology, what is the connection between the three observations? I can't make it out. They said, well, both the viruses are type 2 RNA viruses. And after the protease cut the protein coat, RNase enzyme in the milk apparently inactivates. Now look at this. The coping strategy of the communities to deal with the problem have generated a solution which now on the website of Ontario is said to be the most ideal solution. They are saying, wash your utensils and hands to prevent the spread of the virus. It will provide lasting protection from contact spread. Now, if science could be identified underlying these kind of frugal solutions, not only the science will grow, our respect for communities which find frugal solutions will also grow. Once I was talking in Shodhyatra in Kutch, part of Gujarat, dryland. After half an hour of my talking about why pesticides should be avoided and the herbal pesticides should be used, a farmer said, okay, we understood what you're saying. You're saying that plants which animals don't eat are the potential source of herbal pesticide. He had wisdom, I had knowledge. I spent half an hour in talking about a problem which he summarized in one line. So it is not just the knowledge that matters, it is the wisdom. All these plants are bitter plants. All of them are the potential source of herbal pesticide. Look at how innovations take place. Many times people who are wheelchair bound have to go to long distance and find it difficult because they don't have a car where somebody can make them sit. They need another person. They can't afford a car also. What do? This person, Jignesh, has designed a very simple solution where you take the wheelchair on this vehicle and now you are autonomous. You can go anywhere you wish. Now, it is these kind of solutions which are useful not just for India, but also for Europe. For poor people, wheelchair-bound people, now they can go to 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, 100 kilometers, not a problem. So this is the kind of solution that we need, bound by the need that has been felt by somebody to generate a solution. A very simple idea of how one hand pump can give water to 6 kids by having just a small few dollar attachment. Now, when we talk about inclusiveness, we should not talk about only inclusivity of human beings. You know, this is for drinking, this is for filling the bucket. When you hold the water in the hand, you can't get too much of water because water flowing out is more, your hand cannot hold it. But if some water overflows, it is there in the collected in a trough where animals can drink it. So when we design solutions, we must not think of only human beings. We must also think about birds, about squirrels, about ants, about cattle, about various animals. So we have also looked at innovations around the world. In Iran, Anamika had gone recently there, and she found this innovation of how to roast each cob with the skin on. Now, there are nutrients in the skin. Normally in our country, it is peeled and then roasted. Obviously, the volatiles go away, whereas here they get into the grain and become more tasteful. What Auta Gravitas did, we had an international competition with IFAD Rome, and he used lantana leaf. Lantana is a ornamental brought by British as an ornamental, became an invasive species. And he put in the slices of the cassava so that it can, sweet potato, so that it can last longer. Look at here, just by changing the geometry of the holes on a gas burner, you can save energy and have more efficient use of energy. So there are different kinds of solutions. In China, a boatman who had to cross the large lake to go to the market converted boat into car. In India, an innovator, a mechanic tried to convert a car into boat. This is more costly, this is frugal. Sometimes we have found that one culture finds a more frugal solution than another. Here, both cultures autonomously, independently discovered the same solution. In Maharashtra, India, the Gopal Bhai Vise found cycle as a plowing machine, as a weeding machine, weeding device. In China also, different parts, people discovered the same solution. Why should people discover the same solution over and over again? It is here that the honeybee network philosophy becomes very critical. How do we learn from each other? How do we cross-pollinate ideas? How do we share our databases in open?
Gupta ji, just one, sorry to interrupt. If you could speak a little slowly, there's some people.
Okay, I understand. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, so cross-pollination of ideas become very critical unless we learn from each other, share our knowledge more widely and more easily. The cost of learning becomes higher. And when the cost of learning goes up, people have less incentive to cooperate. So when you learn something from somebody, you have an incentive to cooperate, and that we want more sharing and more caring in our society. So let me look at this knowledge, feeling, and doing. Knowledge is expanding. Feelings are getting reduced, and the action on those feelings is even less. It is this paradox of our time which we need to resolve. It is not enough to know a lot. Today, internet makes a lot of knowledge accessible to a lot of people. Does it vaccinate us? Does it make us insular? Do we feel less now because we know more? That is not what society intended. That's not what our elders have taught us. So how do we expand the scope of feelings? What are the aspects of our knowledge on which we feel strongly about? And then how do we ensure that we also act on those? So the samvedana is a beautiful word in many Indian languages. Sam means equal, Vedana means pain. When I feel somebody else's pain as intensely as that person feels it, it doesn't remain that person's pain, it becomes my pain. Sadanshilta, creativity born out of internalizing others' pain is what leads to empathetic innovation. Empathy is for others, it's not exact word. That's why I'm using the word samvedana. Samvedana is the right word. It is a within. Samvedana is within. Empathy is outside. I have for somebody else. But nevertheless, for want of a better word, we need to find out how do we make empathy more eloquent in our behavior. Look at this. This girl in the center, Shalini, a class 8th girl, found that walker could not be used by her grandfather on stairs, on the steps. She just sent a note, can the front leg be made adjustable? The team at NIF, National Innovation Foundation, made it possible. The Honeybee Network then shares now this solution with around the world. When you come down, the legs become taller. When you go up, the legs become shorter. This is a universal solution. In Europe, you don't have this walker. In the United States of America, you don't have this walker, but you need it. So let us not assume that grassroots innovations are only for developing countries, only for poor people, and the better off people have nothing to do with that. Of course, frugal solutions will make the life of everybody better. This is an example of that. So my book, Grassroot Innovation, The Mind on the Margin Are Not Marginal Mind. Before I close, I would like to mention that there is a great deal of convergence possible between the knowledge system of Europe and India. The compassion, the collaboration, the creativity can converge, and we can produce global goods for larger societal benefit. There's a lot of collaborative research that we can do, action research, join hands. You have a skill, I have a skill, somebody else has an investment, somebody else has an idea. Can we make this triangle of innovation, investment, enterprise happen? That's what GYAN does. It tries to link innovation, investment, enterprise. They all three need not be at one place. Innovation can be in India, investment can come in France, enterprise can be set up in Uganda or anywhere else for that matter. So how do we make this triangle a frugal linkage to link innovation, investment, enterprise together? We must remember that change not monitored is a change not desired. If we're not looking at the knowledge that our society has produced all over the world, then we are not concerned. We are not caring about frugal solutions. So we must map the hot spots of creativity. And we have found such innovations everywhere in the world, including in France. I met a snail farmer, and he had understood how do you ensure that the strong chilly winds don't disturb the multiplication of the snails, and he had developed local solutions for that purpose. So we need to understand that the strength of a network does not lie in itself, but the way this network is formed. Spider's web is very fragile, but it can withstand a lot of storms and still retain its form, feature, and function. So it is not the strength of individual fiber that will make the network strong. It is the way network is organized. And that's what Honeybee Network has been trying to argue, that we should not always wait for the perfect beginning, because perfect beginnings never take place. We don't want best to become the enemy of better. Incremental innovations matter. And good policies become better during the implementation if institutions are strong. So we must remember the three pillars of ecosystem. If technology is like word, institutions are like grammar, culture is like thesis. When we talk to the people in Meghalaya, why did you make this beautiful route bridge? They said the first thing that we asked ourselves was, we want to do something sustainable. Something which has very low, if at all, entropy. We saw the roots of ficus species, rubber tree on both sides of the river. They look like rope, technology. But we couldn't have put them together because we needed group action, institutions. So we need technology, we need institutions, we need culture. Culture is the first culprit in this matter because it raises questions. It forces us to think about frugality, about caring, about sharing. We can learn from innovations at different levels. I will quickly go over this. Artifactual. The walker can be used as such in Europe. It can be used as such in Africa. No change required. You can adapt it to your height. You can adapt it to your need, your weight. It is this to this. Analogic, metaphor. Can we make our things more flexible so that they can adjust to the needs of physically challenged people? They can adjust to the needs of women who may have lesser height than the men or have less load-bearing capacity than men. So we can use metaphors. We can also use heuristics, principles, and just all that what I just described, a combination of factors like technology, institution, and culture. We have this database also in open, more than 200,000 engineering projects. And we made a different, why have we made this database open? We give this award to the students because this database makes it possible for people to find frugal solution. On 2 days back, we were needing designs of ventilator. So I pulled various open design of ventilators and put them on the Facebook and LinkedIn. And suddenly then I find a surge of people who volunteer. I'm a medical engineer, I'm a doctor, I'm a scientist. Can we put together these solutions? I said, okay, I'll also give you the abundant patents. Zygam and Devika have put together 8 million abundant US patents in open source. You can use any of them, they're free. So this playground, innovation playground, will summarize what I have said so far. Learning from outside, inside out, that means I want to share with others, can be high or low. Outside in, that means I want to learn from others, it can be high and low. When both are low, I don't want to learn, I don't want to share, I'm behaving like an ostrich. There are countries, very large countries, which behave like an ostrich. They didn't learn, they didn't share, and magnified the problem. New York itself has 25,000 people affected by this because they didn't pay attention as to what other countries were trying to do in Asia, particularly, but also other parts of the world to cope with the problem. There are those who have low need to share, but lot of need to absorb from outside. They're like sponges, crowdsourcing. Tesla kind of company which share their patents openly. They are pollinators. And of course, if you have both the desire to high, learning need is high, sharing need is high, you have dil bada dimag bada. That means big heart, big mind. It is these kind of communities which will follow this approach of open sharing, open learning. Today, there never was a greater need to open learning openly and sharing openly. We must remember in the end that grassroots innovations are not jugaad. These are not makeshift solutions. There can be makeshift solutions, there's nothing wrong with that. But these are not forcing us to bring systematic, sustainable solutions. So don't confuse between experimental ethic of common people to generate systematic solutions versus a shortcut. Shortcut approach never takes us far. And any society which relies on jugaad will never go far. So how do we collaborate? How do we make our students, scholars more empathetic, more संवेदनशील? How do we create a global gyan to link innovation, investment, enterprise globally so that an innovation does not suffer because the potential for it exists somewhere else, not in the place where it originated? How do we share our knowledge with creative entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, companies, farmers, artisans, mechanics, so that people pool their skills and resources to generate solutions? So learning, Srishti tried to leverage, Gyan tried to link, and I've tried to legitimize. That's how the Honeybee Network has evolved over the years. And we are all together in this effort. We would like to join hands with you to ensure that creativity counts, knowledge matters, innovations transform and incentives inspire, but not just material incentive, also non-material incentive, and not just individual incentive, but also collective incentives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gupta ji. And I think it was a very dense presentation with, I think, all the keys that we need for resilience, starting from redundancy, repurposing, and the power of networks, the metaphor with the spider's web. And I think through all these amazing examples, we see that the power of diversity as well. And currently, like India is the second most populous country, and we are the 5th biggest economy. Currently, there are, I think, around 500 cases that have been identified, but in India, we are taking all the measures to, as in we have our own problems, like some places don't have even enough water to have the luxury that we have to wash our hands 20 times a day. What I saw is like for social distancing, they have started drawing circles in front of shops so that people can take the right distance. There have been startups that have been coming up with low cost ventilators. There's a company that has just come up with around €13 testing kit, and as well as apps. So I think some of the points that you mentioned are really, really important, and we need to digest them. And there are a couple of questions. So now if you have any questions,
Shall I read a few of them and respond? Is that the right way? On the chat, I'm seeing some questions.
Yes, so we have a first question from Arjav. His question is that the commercial aspect of an innovation emerges as soon as investment comes. So at what point does the innovator stop innovating and managing the commercial aspect?
It's a very interesting point because most innovators are continuous improviser. They very seldom can make two things alike. Whereas for entrepreneurship, you have to have batch to batch consistency. So this is a constant struggle. And therefore, sometimes a third party entrepreneur who takes the innovation or license is able to bring greater justice to the process of scaling up than the innovator entrepreneur, because that fellow keeps on improving. There are some successful examples of innovators who became very good entrepreneurs because while they continue to improve, they also commercialize and they set up their own workshop. They are very ethical. They provide after-sales service. But in general, I would say that there are serial inventors, serial innovators who keep on improving. Dharamveer is one of them. He designed a multi-purpose food processing machine and then designed a device for cleaning lakes of aquatic weeds. Then he designed a motorized broom for cleaning the roads, and so many innovations he has designed in different domains. So he's a perpetual innovator. There are people like him, but there are also people who have focused on one or two ideas and continued with that. But the fact remains that scale should not become enemy of sustainability. Some problems are niche specific, so solutions will remain localized, but some other entrepreneur can take them to a different context and scale them up, which is always possible.
We have another question from Camila. What are the main barriers to grow?
Yes, one is of course the team of innovator. They should have an accountant, they should have a manufacturing fellow, they should also have a sourcing person, they should also have a distribution person, and it's not easy. So we have a challenge. One of the areas where we have to work in the coming years is to build shared supply chains, shared distribution networks, so that one network will serve many innovators and bring their products to common point for consumers, so that consumers don't have to go from place to place to search for their solution. So this is one of the challenges. WWF did that with Panda stores where people could buy various environment-friendly, nature-friendly products and posters and books and literature. Maybe we need to think about honeybee network shops where people will find herbal pesticide, they will find veterinary medicine, they will find device for testing urinary tract infections. They will also find a food processing machine model and things of this kind. That is one of the areas in future where we must go to move towards. But apart from that, there is also a barrier in terms of ability of innovators to distance themselves from their idea, which is sometimes very important. As we often say, a possessive mother could sometimes become enemy of her child. An innovator, because of being too close to the innovation, would not let it grow according to the market needs. So they try to keep on adding features and functions to the same prototype rather than having version 1, then version 2, then version 3. And consumers then choose how much value they want to pay for which feature or form or function. So there is an area here where we have to work and expand their vision to be able to take this reality of marketplace in their mind.
We'll just take one last question. I think Camila wanted to clarify. Neil has a question on
yes,
an example of cross-pollination.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So what happened that one of our volunteer, Bob Askov from Scotland, went to Mongolia. And in Mongolia, he found that the cattle, when they were pregnant, the calf was premature born, and one problem for premature delivery of calf and death was deficiency of selenium. Selenium is found much more in the leaves of onion. So they had made a lick of condensed milk, wheat bran, and onion leaves. He shared this example with honeybee. Once I was talking to the Mohawk community of Indigenous community of Canada, they were facing the same problem. And this solution from Mongolia came to Scotland, came to honeybee, Ahmedabad, went to Mohawk in Canada. That's an example how solutions can move from one part of the world to another through cross-pollination. Similarly, there's a book, Fortune and Formula for Farms and Workshops. And in 1943 edition, there's a provision as to how soap made of fat of different fish helps in controlling different pests. Now, in India, people use soap solution for pest control. In France, people use soap solution for pest control. Many organic farmers use that. In Canada, they use it. In North America, they use it. Different people sometimes independently have figured out different ways of dealing with soap, which helps in controlling the pest. Now, some people have found out that fat has the distinctive qualities that different pests need different kinds of soap made from different fat. And these nuances make the knowledge system richer. So there are any number of examples. I gave example of the bitter plants being used for herbal pesticide. In France, we have plants which animals don't eat. In India, we have plants which animals don't eat. In Germany, we have plants which animals don't eat. You don't have to make necessarily the solution that we have made in India. Use the same heuristic and apply it in different conditions in different continents. So one can use same heuristic and apply it to different constraints, different conditions for a similar constraint, and solution can be developed. So it is not just the cross-pollination of solutions, but cross-pollination of heuristics, cross-pollination of thumb rules, cross-pollination of ideas, which should trigger more and more experimentation.
And we'll just take one last question, very short question. Albert, your question is not very clear, so can you just unmute yourself?
You are talking to Albert David?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that question actually.
Yes.
The paradox is, and you will be surprised, that the largest number of requests I have received for talking about frugal innovation is from the large multinational companies. DHL, Cisco, HP, JCB, you name the companies. And they are interested in finding out how to understand this mystique of frugal innovation. So unlike general popular notion, and many small companies, medium scale companies are not as keen for some reason. They are maybe struggling too hard to survive. Maybe they don't have time to reflect and take a step back. There could be other reasons. But I'm not sure that the large companies will always see us as a threat, because niche-based solutions don't pose them any challenge. The buyer may make large number of pesticide. You know, our city in the last 2 days of curfew washed public places with chemical pesticide to disinfect those surfaces. Imagine how many thousands of liters of pesticide went into water bodies, went into our river, went into our underground water wells, and so on. You could have used other alternatives. They are too small, they require distributed action, they require community action. And multinational corporations always know that community action is not easy to mobilize. But Corona has brought back this focus. Now people have to find solution at neighborhood level, help each other. And I hope that we will come back to the decentralized, distributed solutions will become a way of life in time. It may look utopian, but I believe that is going to happen. Gandhian philosophy forces us, or it encourages us to think of this utopia.
Thank you very much, Gupta ji. We will just have, I'll have one more question for you, which will appear on your screen.
Which one?
Just a moment. Just a moment.
This is only the survey question that you're doing. I have a small question to ask, if you wish.
Just a moment, just 2 seconds.
Gupta ji, had you presented at the USID in 2011 in Auroville by chance?
In?
USID 2011 in Auroville. Were you there?
I have been to school, the school there in Auroville. I came to that school to make a presentation, thanks to Kothari's, Bridge Kothari's brother.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the name of the principal at that time, but I had talked to the students in the evening and continued the discussion till late in the night. I think Puru Kothari had organized. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking where I'd heard of Honeybee before, and I thought it was at the usability conference that had happened once there, which I'd attended.
No. Maybe I was also at a conference there, but that was much later, recently only. Whereas this school was decades ago.
All right.
Yes.
So I think you can just answer in the question in the chat. Like, are you planning to all the participants? Are you planning to use what you've just heard for as a personal philosophy for your entrepreneurial projects or for organizational change? And in the meantime, I'd like to present our next week's speaker, Belina, who's written a book called Improvisation to Save the World. And Belina, could you please introduce yourself? Very short, 1-minute introduction, please.
Sure. It's using improv to save the world and me in parentheses.
Right.
And I'd like to brag that I'm very modest. It's lovely to be in this amazing group, and thank you so much for that great talk. So I love, and for many years I've been developing the mindsets and practices of applied improvisation for people to make more sustainable, collaborative, and delightful organizations. And what I find is, what I love about the talk that you gave, I love that you asked the tree, like, why did you grow that way? One of the manifestations of my work is I've worked with a lot of biomimicry experts and people about how, and created a piratey, playful learning adventure of how do we align organizations with how nature and people thrive. Improvisation is a fantastic mindset and approach for connecting and engaging with complex adaptive systems and for innovating frugally. So this feels like the totally right place. One manifestation of my work is about co-creation. So one of my projects is to help artificial intelligence experts and some of the smartest space scientists and earth scientists to do an 8-week innovation for the good of humanity. And NASA just bought up that project. It's called the Frontier Development Lab. And my job is to help these really smart people to be generous and kind and connected in a situation where they're normally afraid. So for me, improvisation is a secret love technology, and it's really useful for personal resilience as well as collaborative resilience. So that might have been a little longer than a minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That's so like, absolutely, resilience is first a mindset, and then it's everything else, a strategy, a plan. So we're looking forward to having a session with you next week. And Jean-Sébastien, are you still there? And if you can present yourself and what you do around conscious business.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah, and so my work on conscious business is on thinking how we can create businesses in a more conscious way, which serve not only the economic profits, but also that can serve the planet, that can serve the people, that can create prosperity, and that can also serve the human psyche and our development as humans. So, I'm really glad that this topic really connects with Professor Gupta's talk.
Thank you, Jean-Sébastien. Fabienne, are you still there? Fabienne Cotteret, and Fabienne, are you there? Okay, she's an agroecologist, and she'll be probably speaking on permaculture. And Marie Caron, she's an expert on visual facilitation. So I don't know if you have taken any notes that you'd like to share with us. Do you want to show us what you've drawn so far? You can unmute yourself. Marie.
Okay, yes. Unmute. I don't know if you can see.
Yes, I can.
don't know
This is beautiful.
what I have drawn, but my favorite is Large Heart, Big Mind, Dil Bada, Di Mag Bada. It's my takeaway. I take away a bit, and this is a small, and this is the heart there.
Yes.
I will share Marie's drawing after the presentation.
Yes. Okay. We can have a small call about this because there are some things to clear. Thank you.
Okay.
That was great.
Very nice.
Thank you very much. And one last thing is I've recently launched a social network. It's called the Frugal Changemakers. So I've put the link in the chat. So you can join and connect with everyone who's on the call. And so you can send personal messages. You can see who are there in your location. And so the idea is to share knowledge, examples from around the world, and connect with like-minded people. So please join and contribute.
If you can send me the emails, and I can send them a copy of Honeybee newsletter to every one of them.
Absolutely.
Then we can remain in touch with the network, and in future, who knows, who may voluntarily contribute to what extent we have. So.
Absolutely. So thank you very much to all of you, and we've managed to keep the time. So if anyone wants to stay longer and wants to has more questions, you can stay and ask your questions. And otherwise, thank you very much for being there and being part of this project.
Wonderful. Yes, I'll be hanging around for a few minutes. If somebody wants to have a personal chat or some small group discussion, that's fine. But thank you so much for having me today with you. And in the crisis that we had, the very fact that in the daytime you can hear birds, thanks to the lockout, not all crises always lead to bad outcomes. So long as it gives chance for nature to recuperate. I was reading today that the global warming has come down globally because of the less number of people driving and walking and using fossil fuel vehicles, and the planes have been stopped. So the global emission of fuel has come down. So I think we should look at this crisis in both ways. It is causing pain to many, but it is also teaching us some lesson. We can't fight with nature too long, too much.
It's like nature has forced us into all of humanity into fasting to reset a few things, right?
That's right. By choice, voluntary suffering. But there is a gain in the voluntary suffering. The fact is that while we are within the houses, those who have elderly people at home, who you may not have talked for weeks and days together, at least now you will talk to them, listen to them. So they will be happier in a way that at least our grandchildren or children are able to find some time for us and not spending all the time. But of course you can be occupied with phone and nothing stops you from doing that. But still, at least you are visible.